All right, as so many people continue to worry over the cost of groceries and other essentials, major retailers warn more price hikes are coming for pantry staples.
No, the latest consumer price index shows grocery costs have jumped again. In fact, it's the biggest increase we have seen since 2022.
$16.99 for one pack of pecans. It's insane.
Yeah, it's bad. I can't believe how much some of this stuff costs, actually.
Overall, grocery prices have continued their upward march.
U.S. is in absolute panic as food prices skyrocket, hitting families where it hurts the most. Inflation has soared to a staggering 12.4%, turning grocery shopping into a daily nightmare of rising bills and shrinking options. Americans are staring at empty shelves, realizing the land of plenty is under siege like never before.
And new data shows inflation is the worst it's been since 1981, up 8.6% since this time last year. That translates to families paying an extra $460 a month.
Food prices shatter records, hitting historic highs that are slamming family budgets nationwide. In the past month alone, beef prices skyrocketed from $9 to $14 per pound, a jump of more than 55%. Cereal boxes surged by $2 each, while lettuce, once the cheapest item in the produce aisle, spiked 30%.
Prices are fueling more concerns about inflation. The producer price index jumped 3.3% over the past year, more than expected. Now that's sparking fears about businesses passing off those higher costs to consumers.
Families nationwide are facing grocery bills hundreds of dollars higher than last month, and economists warn this is only the beginning. The panic didn't build, it exploded overnight. One day, Americans walked into familiar grocery stores expecting routine. The next, aisles were nearly empty, the shelves looked stripped bare, and the prices rise, forcing millions to confront a shocking reality. The so-called land of plenty was gasping for breath. People are wondering how this happened so fast. But the truth was, the explosion had detonated long before the average shopper noticed the smoke.
April 2nd, this was something that the market felt was a disaster.
Everything traces back to April 2nd, 2025, a sunny day in the Rose Garden, when Executive Order 14-257 was signed. The Liberation Day tariffs, as it was proudly branded, slammed the global economy with a force nobody was ready for. Tariffs up to 145% on Chinese goods instantly rewrote the rules of trade. Imports from 60 countries were dragged into the blast zone. Ports jammed, warehouses overflowed, and the supply chain buckled on impact. Washington framed it as a bold punch at Beijing, but the blow rebounded straight into American households. The first people to bleed were the ones pushing carts down grocery aisles. They didn't impose a single tariff, but they were the ones who ended up paying every dollar of it. And no company felt the shock faster than Walmart.
Breaking just a few moments ago, key new data showing wholesale inflation heated up last month. That's a potential sign for the prices consumers may see on store shelves in the months ahead.
What's going on with Walmart? Why is it having so much success?
For decades, Walmart built its entire identity on a single promise: we'll make it cheap. It didn't matter how chaotic the world got. Walmart always found a way to keep prices low. But when those tariffs dropped, the company hit a wall. Trump told Walmart to eat the cost, but the math was impossible. Shipping costs doubled. Containers piled up in ports. The supply chain gridlocked so violently that even Walmart's legendary logistics machine couldn't escape. And then, something unthinkable happened.
We are seeing increases both on the goods and services side. So the products and then the services like airfares or hotels, all of those categories.
Walmart warned the country that prices were going up. Then it actually raised them. Overnight, bargain aisles turned into budget nightmares. Shoppers who had always relied on Walmart to stretch their paychecks suddenly felt robbed. But higher prices weren't even the worst part. The real shock came when Walmart announced it was closing 269 stores. 269. Entire communities lost their main grocery supplier, their main employer, and their economics anchor in one blow. Whole towns went from stable to stranded.
Pricing pressure is building farther back in the supply chains, yet to reach the consumer at the fullest extent.
And as Walmart crumbled, the rest of the retail system began to crack like glass under pressure. Families could tell something bigger was happening the moment they walked into a store. The empty shelves weren't a coincidence. The price spikes weren't temporary. The fear wasn't paranoia.
When I wake up in the morning, I start worrying about bills that need to be paid.
I start worrying about how I'm going to, provide for my family.
I worry more about what my kids are feeling more than anything.
This wasn't the type of slow, predictable inflation economists warn about. This was 24-hour chaos. Every trip to the store felt like someone had rewritten the price tags with cruelty in mind. Families stretched the same paycheck across higher costs, only to realize they couldn't stretch anything anymore. The tariffs sparked the fire, inflation poured gasoline on it, and Walmart's collapse turned it into a nationwide blaze. And this was only the beginning. One of the most brutal, often overlooked shocks to American families during this food crisis is the SNAP program shutdown. Millions of low-income households rely on SNAP benefits to put food on the table. And when these benefits freeze or are delayed, it isn't an inconvenience. It's a full-blown emergency.
My wages have been reduced, or I have a family member to take care of. Most people are in SNAP either 6 months to 24 months, but it's all depending on the economy.
In 2025, reports showed that SNAP participation covered more than 42 million Americans, including over 18 million children. Even a short suspension of benefits left families scrambling, pushing them deeper into hunger as grocery prices soared. With inflation at a staggering 12.4%, the sudden halt of SNAP meant families had to stretch every dollar even further, often forgoing fresh produce, dairy, and protein-rich foods.
And the latest now on the federal government shutdown, its impact on SNAP benefits. Federal food assistance program could run out of money.
The timing couldn't have been worse. SNAP shutdowns coincided with the widespread retail collapse, including the closure of 269 Walmart stores and disruptions at major distribution centers. With supply chains paralyzed, store shelves were already thinning, and families dependent on SNAP suddenly faced empty aisles in addition to frozen benefits. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, food insecurity spiked by nearly 20% in areas hardest hit by these shutdowns, with children and seniors suffering the most.
At my food bank, we've seen the demand for food assistance increase by about 70% over the last 3.5 years.
The combined effect was devastating. Families paid over $1,000 more per year just to survive. Workers lost overtime, and small communities around distribution hubs felt the economic floor crumble. SNAP shutdowns didn't just limit purchasing power. They magnified the impact of rising prices and store closures, turning an already dire food crisis into a harsh reality for millions. For American families living paycheck to paycheck, these shutdowns weren't temporary hurdles. They were life-altering blows in a chain of crises that continues to ripple across the nation.
There's just a lot more economic pressure on families across our community. And as you noted, there are just a really large number of people.
Local economies shook. Restaurants lost customers. Gas stations sat empty. Trucking companies saw contracts vanish. Even local governments panicked as tax revenues evaporated. The entire system, retail, logistics, jobs, small businesses, was connected like a long row of dominoes. And now, the dominoes weren't just falling. They were collapsing in slow motion.
It is ugly, Katie. We actually have a quintuple tariff hit today. The first is the 10% tariff on timber and the 25% tariff on kitchen cabinets and furniture. This is going to be inflationary, Katie.
What started as a tariff war turned into a national retail crisis touching every household. It wasn't just an economic issue anymore. It was a structural breakdown, and the world felt it too. Southeast Asian countries like the Philippines and Kenya saw shelves cleared out as U.S. import chaos rippled into their markets. South Korea took a brutal hit when a sudden 25% tariff choked its shipping routes, leaving Hyundai and Kia containers stacked hopelessly at ports. Europe lost $180 billion in value in 3 days after a threat of 50% tariffs on EU goods. Global food prices soared, rice, oil, canned goods, everything, stuck in ports worldwide.
Well, a concerning new report from Food Banks Canada says increased levels of poverty and hunger are becoming normalized in Canada.
But the silent victims were small businesses. Marketplace sellers were forced to raise prices or pull products entirely. Banks restricted loans. Warehouse rental prices quadrupled as companies rushed to stockpile. Venture capital fled logistics startups, predicting a sector-wide collapse. The human cost became unmistakable. Families were paying $1,000 more annually just to survive. Workers lost overtime. Farmers watched their produce rot in stalled refrigerated containers. Towns built around Walmart distribution hubs faced collapse.
Key things to look at in goods. We saw the price of food, the price that businesses are paying for food, up 1.4%.
Economists warned this could become the largest retail crisis in modern U.S. history, right before the holiday season. Contracts with toy makers, clothing factories, and electronics producers unraveled in real time. Logistics brokers changed agreements weekly, terrified the system could break entirely. Consumers braced for the unimaginable, empty shelves during the holidays. Then came the legal bombshell. On May 28th, a court suspended most tariffs, but instead of relief, it triggered paralysis. No one knew whether tariffs would return, double, or vanish. Companies froze spending. Walmart still braced for its full $25 billion loss because the damage was irreversible. Global markets fell into confusion. Corporations couldn't plan. Governments couldn't respond. Families couldn't predict anything. And that leads to the chilling truth. Today's food price spike isn't random. It's the symptom of a system cracking under pressure. The backbone of American retail has already fractured. If supply chains break again, the next phase won't be temporary shortages. It will be permanent gaps, a retail landscape hanging by a thread, and one haunting question: what happens when the system finally snaps?